Okay, so let's get started. Good morning and welcome to General Finance for May 5th, 2025. Number one, attendance roll call. Go ahead, Amos.
President Amos Key Jr.
Can you use your mic.
Jerry Bombury, present. Dale Bombury, present. Chief, maybe you can make a statement that this is being recorded, so people will understand that later on.
Dean Hill, present. Greg Fraser.
Hazel Johnson.
Elena Venevri.
Cynthia Jameson. And online. Go ahead.
Leslie Green, present.
Helen Miller, present.
Audrey. And also
Audrey Paulus Bombury, present.
Okay. And thank you. And again, we're having technical difficulties. So again, this is going to be recorded and then posted. Let's go to number two, identification of media. I don't see any. And before we go into the agenda, it's Red Dress Day today to honor and bring awareness to the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and two-spirited individuals. So have my red on today. I see others have the red on today. So let's go to number three, changes, deletions, and adoption of the agenda. If there's nothing, can I have a mover? Moved by Carrie, second by Cynthia. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Let's go to number four, no delegations. Let's go to number five, adoption of the general finance minutes for April 7th. There's no moved by Elena. Seconder. Second by Hazel. All in favor? Head carry.
That one item on number 14. Camera. Oh, I think I'm reading wrong. I'm reading in camera. Yeah.
Okay, so all in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Let's go to number six. Loan for 37 Sunrise Court. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Morning, Chief. Good morning, Council. I understand as I was walking in that it sounds like the briefing note for this is not in the Dropbox. So I'll just read what it is and then field any questions. But there is a briefing note that was prepared. I think it was waiting on signatures to be able to get in the Dropbox. So whereas Six Nations of the Grand River previously approved a loan for the construction of the 50-unit elders apartment building located at 37 Sunrise Court, whereas the current loan is due for renewal on May 1st, 2025, whereas Six Nations of the Grand River has available cash to pay the loan in full, whereas net savings and interest charges are approximately $130,000 could be realized. Therefore, be it resolved that the Six Nations of the Grand River 59th Elected Council approved to pay in full the loan for the 50-unit elders apartment building located at 37 Sunrise Court, currently held by the Royal Bank of Canada in an amount not to exceed $1,366,600.00.
And go ahead, Elena.
Where are the funds coming from?
The funds are coming from available cash that is in administration. So it's a combination of rent revenues that we collect and also interest revenues that have created cash sitting there that we would be using to pay this loan in full. So the current interest rate that we earn on the Six Nation of the Grand River bank account deposits is 3.19%. And the lowest loan for what we had been offered is for 4.15%. And that is where that $130,000 gain of interest is being realized, or could be realized, I should say.
So we'll add that in the motion. Is there a mover?
I'll-
Okay.
Are we paying the $130,000 this year, or you want to pay off the whole loan, 1 million?
Paying the whole loan of the 1 million to save the $130,000 of the interest.
Well, I hope we consider this when we're looking at Gowanio.
Okay, is there a mover?
I move Audrey.
Moved by Audrey, seconder. Second by Hazel. Any other questions or comments? Carrie?
Are we always in a situation where we got extra money, we start paying off loans? I mean, it seems like all of a sudden we got 130,000 and then, or we're gonna make, well, yeah, we got 1.3 and we're gonna pay that loan off and then say 130,000. I can't really understand that.
Yes, we are always in a position where we do have the cash available. It's a matter of identifying whether or not the source of funds can be used. So we do have the $1 million to be able to pay for it. Alternatively, we can go into the loan, we can spend another $130,000 in interest, and save our cash flow for something different. But it's based solely on mathematics and the saving of future funds that this recommendation is coming forward for council to consider.
Dale, Amos, and Leslie, then we'll vote.
Yeah, I guess my question is just looking at the big picture in relation to where these funds are, where all the rest of the funds are. I think it'd probably be prudent, I guess, for council to be aware of that big picture and looking at where all this cash is and where all the flows are, where all the expenses are gonna be. So I just think it's almost like we're piecemealing things here. And as much as I, want to save $130,000, but I guess looking at the big picture for council, I guess, is there a timeline, Jennifer, when we're gonna do that and see that big picture in relation to all of council's finances?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, there is a timeline. As you're aware, over the last 6 months with doing the double duty, it's been a little bit of a strain on being able to properly pull everything together in a manner that it can be presented. Still being monitored, still being looked at, obviously, but being able to put it in a place where it can be consumable to answer fully some of the questions that you're asking. So it's a work in progress, and I'm hopeful that within the next 4 to 6 weeks that there'll be a little bit more bandwidth to be able to have some of those things pulled together for you.
Follow up, go ahead.
Okay, and just in regards to that date of May 1st, I know that's a date that's usually is kind of open where they can think, so is RBC giving you some timeline there? Because today's the 5th, and I know it's usually on that day that they usually make things happen to allow for lump sum payments or whatever it is, so I don't know if they're giving you extensions.
Yes, we've been very, very clear with them and talking about the timelines. They're aware of our need to be able to meet with council to be able to make these decisions. So we've been in full contact with them. For renewing the loan, however, the lowest interest rate did come in from somebody other than RBC. So if that was the route that we decided, then we would have to contact the other bank and also RBC and let them know of our decision as soon as possible.
Amos?
Yes, when we go to the strategic planning meeting, I'm going to advocate for an audit and finance committee. This council's fiduciary responsibilities look at, and the legal responsibility of the government is to look at the finance, the big picture. It's not administrative. It's our responsibility as government. I don't know where this money is. That's why I'm talking against it. But I just really want to remind council I'm going to be doing that to install that, to work with Jennifer, because we have some things coming down a pipe and have well-being as well for their nursing home, for instance. And they need our help in council as well when we're looking at the new nursing home at $48 million. So I'm going to be advocating, either we do it now or we do it as strategic planning, or I do it when we run for council again. But it's going to go public. I'm going to go public with this. This council needs to be advocating for that. An audit, finance, and risk management committee. And if you don't believe me, look it up, Google up, whatever it is. There's even some First Nations um, websites where they show what their audit finance committee does. So I'm advocating for that now. I don't know where this money is coming from. You don't show me anything, so I'm just going to. I vote for the $130,000 loan interest payment, but not the 1.3 million. Not when we got Go You on the table as well.
Leslie?
Thank you. My question is for Jennifer Court. And Jennifer, the question I have is, on that $1.3 million, what does that, what's the interest? It's in an interest bearing account, is it not?
It's sitting in our general operating account. But we do receive interest on our holdings in our bank account, as well as the monies that are sitting in OF and LP, which is separate, which are the monies that we're discussing for things like Avenue and the Lodge. But to answer your question, Counselor, the money sits in our general operating account. But it went there, yes, from interest revenues that we have. All of those monies go into our general operating account.
Okay, so my question directly would be, what is the interest? Like if we're paying 100 and what is that, 130 something on the loan, right? Is it? What was that amount again?
So the total interest of the loan would be $300,000. There'd be an interest savings of $130,000.
Okay, so I see the savings, but I'm asking, what is the interest gained on $1 million then? I mean, if you look at a bulk amount like of 200 million, you know that percent up there, so we can break that down for ourselves. Like, wouldn't the interest that's being generated, even though the savings is 100 and something thousand, I understand what you're saying, but I also don't see a need to pay it off right now because there's so much interest being gained. What is the interest on our account that's being held?
So the interest that would be generated on the $1 million that we're talking about paying the loan with would be a total of $174,000. It's actually $174,367.16. The interest over the 10-year period for renewing the loan would be a total of $305,435.90, which equates to the opportunity cost of the interest of 131. So that's where the math comes from. 305 would be paid out on renewing the loan. If we held the funds in the bank account and just paid on the monthly basis that we've been doing, we would earn 174,000. So the difference between 305 that we'd be paying out on paying the loan and the 174 that we could earn if we held the money is that $131,000. I hope that is clear.
Okay, Elena?
That's if we hold the money and do not spend the money. So the money has to sit there for the term of the loan for this savings to be realized.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would have to sit there, and then it would be drawn down, obviously, as we make those loan payments.
Yeah.
So it's moved by Audrey, second by Hazel. All in favor? Okay, raise your hands. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, Audrey, 7. Who's not in favor? Raise your hand. I have 1, 2, 3. 4. So it is carried. No. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead. Yeah.
No, I guess it's not that I'm against it, it's just that looking at the big picture, I need to see the big picture before we start making all these decisions, because we're making a decision here, making a decision here, making a decision here without looking at the big picture. So that's my reservation. It's not that I'm against it, I just have reservations about that.
That's why we should have a finance committee.
I just said make sure that it's on the next one.
Can you see my hair? I don't know
Yes,
if you
we
can
do.
see. Oh,
Yes, we do, Helen. Go ahead.
no, I just wanted to say that I agree with Amos that we need to get a good handle on our finances, because frankly speaking, I don't think we have one right now. Not council anyway. Too many things are being labeled administration. So I agree with Amos.
Go ahead, Leslie.
Hi, thank you. And thank you, Amos, for presenting that. I agree as well. I would, and Dale, and Helen, I agree that there needs to be a big picture of what we're looking at so it helps us to plan as well, to efficiently plan with the chief financial officer.
Go ahead, Elena.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues and we should look at the bigger picture. I'm totally not against paying off loans if that's what is best and that's what the math shows. But again, I would like to see the bigger picture. As Dale said, we're kind of piecemealing things and that doesn't sit right with me. And then I just wanted to express to community who is listening later that the people that have spoken are the ones that have voted opposed to the motion, and that's why we're explaining why we were opposed.
Okay, Audrey.
Yeah, I was for it, for saving that large amount of money, but I do agree with Amos, and we have talked about this, that we do need to have an audit and finance committee. We had one prior apparently, and it makes it a lot easier when you go in with a motion like this, knowing where all the money's coming from and knowing that how much money we actually do have for other projects like palliative care, Iroquois Lodge, new building, Gowanio, and all the other myriad of infrastructure we have to build. So I appreciate all the work you're doing, Jennifer, and that you have been under double duty, and you're doing a good job. So from here on in, we'll just kick it up a notch and try and make sure that we know where all the finances are prior to making decisions. Yeah.
Okay, can I wait second reading on 6-1?
Oh, motion.
No. Okay, never. Okay, let's go to number 7. Recommendation from the community committee, moved by Melba and second by Carrie. So I'm gonna need a mover. Yep. So can I move you, Dean?
Yeah.
As a mover? So it'd be moved by Dean, second by Carrie. It's regarding, is there a as? Just for information? Okay. Yep. So Deb is coming on, but you can start. Go ahead, Dean.
Sure. So from what thank you, Chief. So this was just coming up in my committee and I assume it's going to be coming on to other committees. I know Deb is going to be jumping online soon, but it's just the different entities that are going to be in organizations outside of ours that will be coming to council for either financial aid or support because of the Jordan's principle funds being restricted on their end. This one in particular was, let's see here, was to do with education. And a lot of the students that were enrolled in this program we're going to have to be not funded because Jordan's principal isn't coming through with their money. So all this was from my end here was just to discuss and let council know that this will be happening a lot more. And hopefully we can have a resolution to it in the future. And then hopefully Deb can then continue on from her end on health. Thank you.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah, I'm not quite following you. That is, it's a recommendation that council recommended to discuss Jordan's principal entities not being funded. I don't know, how can we pass a motion? It talks about some discussion. Do you know what I mean?
So I think that's what it's just for information, I think, right?
What information though?
Go ahead, Dean.
There is no information.
The information is us discussing if any other committees or future delegations coming into committees are going to be speaking about Jordan's principal and maybe them asking for financial aid because the Jordan's principal isn't funding them. So they're going to be coming to council.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Kind of a
And then
moot,
Deb's on.
a moot point, unless Deb's gonna come on and discuss and get into it, then I would think we've discussed, it implies we discussed.
Go ahead, Deb. We're on 7, recommendation from the community committee regarding Jordan's principles. Can she hear me?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay, sorry, I missed the first part and I wasn't clear that this item was coming from the community committee. Can you give me just a little bit of background on the discussion?
Go ahead, Dean.
So this was just for information for council, Deb, but if anything you can add on about the Jordan's principles not funding certain organizations or entities, which then will be turned into council for that funding to kind of supplement what they're not getting. That's pretty much it. And then I'm assuming this is why this was on the agenda, because this was discussed at the community committee, because one organization did come in, and then one did previously before, asking about how they can get funding because Jordan's principal isn't funding them. This one is in regards to education. And any other organizations have been most likely or maybe coming to health or well-being would probably asking the same. And this is just for council's information that this will be coming down.
Okay, so I've been to council before to just, give you an update that there has been notices that we've received from Jordan's principal on the changes. And really what it's about is the fact that, there's been a lot of questions on how Jordan's principal was funding requests earlier. When it originally started, Jordan's principal was put into place to help families and children with costs associated. I really, it was regarding medical costs that were needed, that either the province or the federal government could not support. When Jordan's principal then started, it quickly became more than medically related, more than health related, and it became a catch-all for everything. We all know the social determinants of health that that we face as First Nations people. So it was the go-to for everything. What I want to make clear is that as applications, so our role as a Jordan's Principal team was to help to support families with applications of their needs. We did not approve or deny those applications. Those applications went up to ISK, and it was Indigenous Services Canada, the Jordan's Principal team, who either approved or denied those applications. It's been in the media about, a lot of the spending that's been happening and the items that were approved. Again, not by the Jordan's principal teams in the communities, but by Indigenous Services Canada. And so when we started to get the notices in November last year of the changes being made, it started to impact how we did service delivery. For example, we were able to, with any type of emergency situation of a family. So let's give for an example, if a family experienced a house fire, we were able to put measures in place to immediately house and shelter that family. And then we would continue with the application, and a lot of the applications we did for those emergency type situations, our Jordan's principal workers were versed in what they knew would get supported and approved and what wouldn't. So a lot of times those situations we were getting approved for them because again, the workers knew what to put down, how to support that family.
with this change now, we are no longer able to do that. So we no longer are able to submit those emergency applications for approval and get funded, like, or actually support the families immediately. We now have to submit applications and wait for approval before we can support. So that's an example. It's I have to stress again that Jordan's principle has been the catch-all for any type of children's needs. So it went way beyond health into that, not just the social determinants of health, but also the social aspect that our children didn't have. Um, Now, what happens is we have not been approved for all of our normal funding that we get as of yet. So we normally have a service coordination budget that um, we submit for approval. And that service coordination budget, that's for the staffing. So that allows us to hire the different staffing that support the Jordan's Principal team. So part of that budget has been approved, part of it hasn't. The SAR funding, the service agreement fund, that's what we would use for applications. So if applications were approved at the Jordan's Principal level, in order for us to be able to pay service providers immediately, we would be able to do that with that funding, so that families and service providers who were going to be working with children and families we were able to pay them immediately versus having to wait for that process to go through the government. We're no longer able to do that. So it's going to impact that part as well. And then the last piece now, for any type of application that's going forward, it now has to have letters of support, not just from the normal, like I know the chief and council would have to on occasion write support letters for families, but it's also a requirement now that any application going in have a professional support letter. So, a doctor, a specialist, a nurse. It makes it difficult, to gather all the evidence and submit that, and then sit and wait for an approval. The approval processes are now months behind. We're looking at 12 months at this point, so a year. So it has impacted the ability for us to support these children and families like we used to. We're no longer able to do that. And what really worries us as a department is being able to offer that emergency support. Um, it limits what we can do, and it also worries us in terms of who's going to support them. I think what has to happen at this point now is we need to come together as service providers to look at, in the absence of that immediate support through Jordan's Principle, how are other programs now going to help support the children and families? That's the question that we now have to work towards finding a solution for, because it is going to be a matter of several programs coming through now and being able to offer support to be able to, get children what they need.
Okay, thank you for the update. I have Audrey, Amos. Go ahead, Audrey.
Thank you, Deb. That was a very good explanation. And I agree with that. All programs should be working together, but I think this should stay at the well-being committee to get organized and to work with social and all the other programs that need to be tied in. So that is one thing I'd like to recommend. And yeah, I think that we need to be at the table too, council, so that we can politically advocate for whether it's funding or whether it's the process of how to get more funding, especially emergency funding and services to our families, and especially our little young ones who require it. So I think we need to work together on this one. Yeah. Well,
Go ahead, Amos.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot about this as well. Jordan Anderson didn't give up his life for funding hockey teams and car payments. He gave up his life because he had a medical condition. But Deborah's right. This thing has become a mess. And somebody needs to take ownership of that. I reminded ISK that they should, because they're the ones that broadened the scope of what could be funded. And that's why Deborah says it's a catch-all for everything. I think we need to either you, Chief, take it to the Chiefs of Ontario, your leadership committee, and call on the Auditor General to have an evaluation of this program, because it is a federal program. And they can find out what went wrong, because I think there's going to be lots of pie in their face when they find out what went wrong if we're funding hockey teams and car payments. That's not what it was for. And I don't think the family of Jordan Anderson would appreciate that, what happened to their son's passing. So I think we need to get control of this. And again, it's typical Indian affairs, ISK. They still, like, the minister has to have the authority to approve what happens on the ground level. And I reminded ISK as well that we have staff that are capable of evaluating these requests. They have responsibility, have social responsibility. They would know when someone's trying to pull something under them. But they want to have that control to approve, and it's getting longer and longer. And if it's an emergency, you want to know within at least 3 or 4 days. But that's not happening now. And Deborah just mentioned that. So I think we really got to get control of this. And I would, again, I know we just had a housing summit. Because it's worth so much money, we might want to have a summit on just Jordan's principle, so that all the players in all the agencies are at the table in the same room, social, well-being, education. Because Travis has some responsibility as well, because he has some of them funded. The TAs are being funded through this. So what are they saying? And they're a federal department. So I think we need to find out all the leverages that are going on and find out what's going on. And I would suggest we have a summit. And I know we've been trying to deal with it at well-being. The Jordan's principal staff started a presentation to us, but we had to short it up. But they already have a PowerPoint that could give us the history of this if we're all in the same room at the same time, and then we could have a conversation, I think. That's what I would suggest.
Okay, Cynthia?
I have a question and a comment. Deb, am I to understand, because in those two areas you mentioned, one being the monies we would get so you could have like the service coordinators to help people fill out these applications. We haven't got that yet, I'm understanding, for this 24-25. And then we have also not received the it's emergency, I'm understanding it's emergency funds. So folks, like the example you gave, who have an emergency situation, you could go ahead and attend to them. And I don't know, I think, was that generically referenced as like a group funding application? So going forward, is it that will not be available to us? If you could answer that, then I have a comment to make.
Yeah, so there was two applications that were normally, applied for on an annual basis. So the service coordination, so that was a lot of the positions that we have at Jordan's Principal to help with the workload, because again, from the inception of this program until now, it's thousands of applications that are being submitted. So part of that was funded, but part of it wasn't. um, which is now going to impact staffing literally. So we are looking at working with Jordan's principal on, how we can, the workload is there, but it's, with the changes now, it's going to be impacted. The SARF is that's the budget that allows us to help support. So approved applications that come back to us from Jordan's principal, that also has some positions tied to it, but mostly it's regarding the service. So just being able to pay for those services that are needed by the children. So that is the one we're waiting on yet. So without approval of that budget, any application will now have to go back to ISC to manage. So they're going to have the control over ensuring that those are paid, those approved applications are paid out. We were able to do that independently, but without approval of those dollars, that's something that we can no longer do.
Follow up, go ahead.
Uh, Thank you, Deb. I'm not sure you completely answered. I think you answered the situation we're in, but my question was contemplating going forward for, we haven't received all our funds for 24, 25, but for
Correct.
25, 26, I get, the question was more based on what you said, has ISK made a decision it will not entertain any more group applications, rather it be individual?
So for any type of group applications that go in, we now have to list and get approval for every child within that group application. And that includes the support letters. So it's becoming an administrative nightmare.
Go ahead. Follow up.
So essentially, it's like there are no group applications because if you have to do what you said, fill everything out and get the doctor support letter verification for each and every one, it would be the same as doing them all individually.
Exactly.
Understand? Now, my comment is, and the phrase from the justice system, everyone, of course, is familiar with, is justice delayed is justice denied, is very applicable to what's going on here and has already been entertained by the Canadian Human Rights Commission. There was decision orders made, that is the young child was denied access to medical attention and as a result passed away. So this was to be address that, to make sure children in medical need would get their need. If you delay, well, if it's a medical emergency, what else is going to happen? So it's very much that. And I very much agree that if Chief can bring this up with their leadership, it should be one of the priority items at the upcoming their fifth. Is it the 50th? This June? That should be a priority, which is all fine and good, but us, Six Nations ourselves, we should be taking this forward. It's like I don't know whether we have to have like what do you call those kind of lawsuits, class action lawsuit? The whole thing began because, as what I said, the young person didn't get the medical attention needed, emergency. And because of their total mismanagement of the whole system, it didn't just start lately, this backlog. That's been going on since they got the order. And because they didn't invest, plan properly, it's just been a mess from the get-go. And it continues to be more than a mess. And then our members, are the ones that suffer as a result. So we ought to be ourselves, Six Nations, setting up meetings and be very blunt And like, we don't want to go there, but if we have to go there, like, this is outrageous.
The other thing I would like to say, Cynthia, I totally agree with what you're saying. Recently, there's been announcements made by ISK that we also, not we, but they also need to start looking to the province. When it comes to issues like education support, where does the province step in? That statement takes us right back to why Jordan's principle was even started. It started because of Jordan River Anderson being in a hospital his entire little life because the province and the federal government went back and forth on whose responsibility it was to support him. Here we are again, how many years later, and that same dialogue is still happening. The federal government is looking at where does the ministry step in to help support with things like education. We're beyond that. We should be beyond that. This program has been in existence for a number of years now, and we're still asking that same question. Why is that?
Okay, so I talked to Dean, the mover, and as information. And again, thank you, Deb, um, for giving the update. Go ahead, Elena. Follow up.
Uh, Council, that's what, remember I said just based on the wording? We were asking for a mover and a seconder. It implied we already had this discussion. To me, it would be, we have a discussion now, we can, if there are no more questions, then we could, and maybe even add on to it, because this, I don't know, is we have to wait for everybody to gather. That's, that's the, plan. Like, what do we do in the meantime? So that's like also at the service level, but in the meantime, on a political level, I don't think we can sit idly by, because the system is rot with mismanagement that was supposed to be put in place to address this. So I don't know if perhaps with is it was it Melba that
No,
came forward,
Dean.
Carrie, that brought it here?
Dean and Carrie.
If you would be agreeable, if we could add something to that effect to that particular motion, having had our discussion.
So in the sense, because my office would be able to set up a meeting for sure to discuss, but also I'll bring it to the leadership, Chiefs of Ontario. Yep. Political. Oh, your mic, sorry.
We can add to that motion, there'll be immediate follow-up by the Six Nations political arm or sector, and including communicating the need for it to be a priority at the upcoming Chiefs of Ontario Assembly.
Okay, go ahead, Elena.
I don't want to take away from this discussion, but my mind always goes to what can we do now? And Dean is talking about these are emergent situations, and when we heard from Deb that applications are taking upwards of 12 months. And so I just wanted to remind the community that could be watching and interested in this topic that we do have the community donation fund that is available. I just confirmed with Jennifer that there is funds available that remain. So if there are families in our community that require funding immediately, I don't think that our process takes 12 months. I know it's not a lot. Individuals can receive up to $1,000 and associations 3,000. So please check into that if you're in need.
Okay, go ahead, Amos,
Uh,
then Hazel, and then we'll vote. Then we'll just move it as information.
I think whatever this motion we're talking about right now, I think we need another motion that directs you to find a seconder to take it to the Chiefs Assembly in June. This whole matter of that we request the Auditor General to investigate the Jordan's Principle funding. I think Arn Donald will probably jump right on it with us. So I would like to make that
change. Cindy, it was already added into the first motion? Yeah. So, but I'll for sure ask, Chief Miracle.
Yeah.
Yep. Hazel, and then we'll just move as information with those changes.
Okay, so at one point we did mention about that we should get together and discuss this in order to prepare, I guess it's not a position paper, but this Six Nations opinion, etc. And it would all be recorded with the issues that want to be taken to ISK, because that's where our problem is. And I think the sooner that that gets done, and I'm just wondering if it would be a full council advocacy to all go together to Toronto, to the ISK office to see, because this is a serious, sad matter. Thank you.
Okay, so again, Dean moved it and Carrie seconded it. And oh, go ahead, Deb. Did you have a follow up to that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarification. I think it's important to get the complete background since the inception of Jordan's Principle here at Six Nations, how it used to operate and what we're being, instructed to do in terms of our operation. Is it possible that we can convene so we can give you that history? And also, I think, just going off of Amos's recommendation as well, we need to come together as a service providers to look at, in the absence of, how it used to be with Jordan's Principle, how can we organize ourselves so that when children are in need, we are coming together to look at, who's the first point of contact? If they're not able to support, then who does it go to? Because I think we do have a lot of services in our community that can help support kids in the absence of, how we used to operate with Jordan's Principle. So I would recommend if we could sit down and meet with council to do that history. Like Amos said, there was a PowerPoint that was created by the team, which was excellent to really give you that history of the program.
We'll make sure that we get that set up. I was just talking to Dean then we'll talk to Amos and get that done. Okay. Yep. Go ahead, Amos.
I would say we should invite social well-being and even education. I don't know whether is that the guy's name Travis, whether he has any information that they're using.
Yep, I think everybody who's being affected for sure. Let's move on. This is just
My hand was up, Sherry.
go ahead, Audrey.
Yeah, I think this should be led by health or well-being. And yes, definitely education should be involved in this because that's basically what it is. And social, so that we get together with all the programs. But most of the information is coming from well-being, and it'll be a lot easier to discuss at that table and invite the other groups to it. So that's my my suggestion, then the direction that we move to. Because this is going to be lifelong at the tables, and we have lifelong learning, which it fits right into, as well as the same goes for well-being and social.
Okay, so it's been moved by Dean, second by Carrie, and again, add with those additions, and this was just as for information. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. And let's do waive second reading on that one because of the other that was added to it. Is that okay, Dean? And Carrie, all in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Let's go to number 8. Is comprehensive funding agreement amendment number 161, 163, and 164. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you, Chief. So recommendation 8.1 reads, whereas Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council has entered into a 5-year comprehensive funding agreement with Indigenous Services Canada, whereas comprehensive funding agreement amendment numbers 161, 163, and 164 have been received for council approval and signatures. Therefore, be it resolved that Six Nations of the Grand River 59th Elected Council approve and sign the following comprehensive Comprehensive Funding Agreement Amendments number 161, 163, and 164 for fiscal year 2025-2026 between His Majesty the King and Right of Canada, as represented by the Minister of Indigenous Services, and the Six Nations of the Grand River. The amendments include additional funding for the following departments, programs, or projects. Amendment number 161 for home and long-term care assisted living, $101,926. Amendment number 163, income assistance for funerals and burials, $30,247.24. And amendment number 164, child and family services, $40,391,090.
Okay, is there a mover? Moved by Dean. Is there a seconder? Second by Carrie. Go ahead. Question, Carrie.
Yeah, that amendment 163, Jennifer, can that be increased in any way, or would that be ISC that has to?
Amendment number 163 for the funerals and burials, that is applied for through the Ontario Works Department, and it's a reimbursement. So that is a reimbursement of funds that were spent and reimbursed. So it gets increased by increased applications, but it's not sort of a level of funding that we would be accessing more money. It's based determined on need and income qualifications, I believe.
Go ahead, Cynthia. Then Elena.
Jennifer, when you were just giving your little narrative there, did I hear that you mentioned funerals and burials? Can you just expand on that a little? I know we used to have it through social welfare, Ontario Works. Is that what that is? But it's
Yes,
it's
exactly.
portion.
Yeah, it comes through Ontario Works, through ISC. And it's a reimbursement.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is that amount and what is it per person and what do you have to do to be eligible or do you know?
I'm sorry, I don't know
Okay.
the details of that.
He knows.
It used
Go
to,
ahead, Dale.
sorry. It used to be up to a limit of 2,500. I think there was a limit that I would set per application, and then you'd have to go through an application process through Ontario Works, so subject to your income and different things. So it was geared more towards like low income people. But I think there was a limit, and I think it was 2,500, and I don't know if it's still there. So that was like 5 years ago. So I don't know if it's changed or since then, but it used to be at that amount.
Yep, go ahead, Jennifer. And then Elena.
We can get some more information together, and I can present what the qualifications and what the limits are at a future meeting.
Go ahead, Elena.
No, that was my question. So information coming back is great. Thank you.
Okay, so moved by Dean, second by Carrie. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Question, go ahead, Dale.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't put my hand up earlier, but just on 164, is there a breakdown for that funds for child and family services? Is that any of the CHRT money coming in? That 33 or 32 based on the per capita?
Yes, there is a breakdown that was provided in the Schedule 4 of that amendment. It goes over 5 different categories, and it does include the CHRT. Yes.
Okay, let's waive second reading. Moved by Dean, second by Carrie. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Let's go to number 9, is comprehensive funding agreement, amending agreement for flex funding. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you, Chief. Recommendation 9.1 reads, whereas Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council has entered into a 5-year comprehensive funding agreement with Indigenous Services Canada, whereas Indigenous Services Canada has amended the comprehensive funding agreement and has provided amending agreements to extend the deadlines for unexpended funding from previous fiscal years 2018-2019 through 2023-2024 to a deadline of March 31st, 2026. Therefore, be it resolved that Six Nations of the Grand River 59th Elected Council approve and sign the following amending agreements between His Majesty the King and Right of Canada, as represented by the Minister of Indigenous Services and the Six Nations of the Grand River. Indigenous Services Canada Agreement Number 1617-ON-000010 Amendment 0107 unexpended funding, and FNIB Agreement Number 1617-ON-000047 amending agreement for unexpended flex funding, and FNIB agreement number 1617-ON-000047- amending agreement for unexpended fixed funding.
Okay, is there a mover and seconder? Audrey, moved by Audrey, seconder? Second by Hazel. Questions? Go ahead, Amos.
What's the amounts for each one of these years, unexpended?
I don't have the numbers with me today, Counselor. This was working with ISC, talking about some of the flex funding and stuff, and we are working on a reconciliation with ISC right now to make sure that our numbers match their numbers. So it's a work in progress. This was to give us more time to be able to nail down those numbers with ISC to ensure that we're all on the same page.
Okay, so if we establish a audit, finance, and risk management committee, this could go there as a final agreement, final approval, right?
Helen?
Yeah, I was gonna just ask the same question as Amos, like, how much money are we looking at that we haven't spent? And I guess I would want to know why we haven't spent it. We seem to be having a lot of issues and funding and different things, so I guess the question would be, why are we not spending money that we have? But she answered Amos's, so that's just my question. She don't have to answer, but that's my thinking is, I don't like it to see when we're not spending money because we keep saying we need money. We need money for this, we need money for that. And then I'm looking at this to say we're not spending the money we have. And this has been going on for years. We all know that, but we always tried to find out before why they didn't spend it. So that's just my question.
Go ahead, Dale. Okay. All right, it's been moved by Audrey, second by Hazel. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Waive second reading.
Audrey,
Moved by Audrey, second by Hazel. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Can I have a motion to adjourn the open session for today? Moved by Cynthia, second by Hazel. All in favor? Anybody opposed? See none, carried. Thank you for joining us today and have a great day.